What do you guys think?
A lot of mudslinging. A lot of mudslinging.
It was
Yeah,
pretty rough first half.
nothing. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just saying. I think it was pretty intense first half. What do you think?
Definitely intense. Hillary doesn't want to lose whatever advantage she thinks she has, but
She's
mm,
whack.
What you know? What? Go ahead.
I said she's whack. Like,
I
Well, she
think she's trying to bring down Bernie's trustworthy numbers
yeah.
and at least make it 50-50. But in a 50-50 scenario, when he's behind, that's still an improvement for him. And for her to attack while her trustworthy numbers are still so low,
Yeah.
and
yes.
if you're going to give the choice of who people are going to believe more, they've told you who they're going to believe more. They're going to believe Bernie.
Mm-hmm.
So it's for her to attack. There's a way for her to attack that for it to work, but this isn't how you would do it. It's more difficult. This is the easier way to do it, but she seems to have the confidence of her inevitability, meaning people will just believe whatever she says. And like hardcore Hillary fans will, but like undecided
Yeah.
Latinos and people coming to vote in Florida and North Carolina and Ohio and Illinois, that's not a guarantee.
Well, and here's another like interesting point. Like, just because she named a bunch of Latino organizations, because this is what she does, right? She'll list a whole bunch of other people who
Ted
agree.
Kennedy and Latino organizations.
Right. She'll list a whole bunch of people who agree with her as if somehow that justifies her position. But it's just like the same thing with like, the different organizations that support her supposedly, pro-choice or pro-gay rights groups. Not all groups within a certain demographic are equal. I read a very interesting critique of Dolores Huerta about how like they weren't necessarily, her group wasn't necessarily pro-immigrants, and they actually were against guest workers at one point in their history as well. So the fact that they would be enforced something that maybe disadvantaged guest workers, that in and of itself is not necessarily like the aha that she's looking for. I think Bernie did a good job of distinguishing, explaining, and then pivoting. And when she started off, I think it was JP, it was either JP or Dalton in the room who said like, well, what's the misrepresentation? Someone said, well, what was the misrepresentation? She says, well, that's the misrepresentation, but never tries to even explain. She did tell Elliot Spitzer not to allow them to get like IDs. She didn't try to explain that at all. She did, which no one brings it up, but she did vote with Republicans for the wall. And it was either in 2006 or 2007, I believe. So like there are so many different issues going on there, and it was mudslinging, but I'm proud of him for standing his ground. His tone was good. I can't tell if he was pointing at her since we were listening, but
He's on the other side now, so
he's on the
he
other
always
side.
points with his
Well,
right
that's
finger.
what somebody else was pointing out though the other night, that he's always on the other side of her when they debate. So he does point when he talks. It just so happens that they were facing, so he was pointing at her. So that was kind of a whole ridiculous debacle anyway. But I think he's off to a good start. We'll see. Hopefully he can maintain his footing. But whoever talked to him in preparation, he sounds a lot stronger. Probably had a really good day in Miami. I mean, it's South Beach, right? So.
I really liked the moderators too, and I think when you guys were like saying how she said this is a misrepresentation, but didn't explain how it was, I think the moderators coming at them with the tough questions definitely shows that the Latinos and all the people watching this debate probably aren't going to fall for crap like this the same way Michigan didn't fall for her crap during the other debate.
I agree with that. It looks like we're coming back, but hang on. I think we have time for one more comment. David, get in there.
I really I get a kick out of how much she mixes so many different things together that it loses the listener. And I feel like that's one of her strongest tools. she can confuse you so that you can't actually focus on what she's not saying.
All right, we're coming back now, and let's listen in. All right, Noah, it's in your hands. What do you think?
Yeah. I'm pleased. I mean, I'm pleased from listening. I'd like to see facial expressions and stuff, but this is interesting actually just listening. But the way he pivoted, I think he did good. He's attacking where he needs to be. I know like some people in the chat room have said she and I know we said it too. He could have finished her on that other answer before, but he chose not to. I think maybe he gets really excited. He's like, yeah, and then he's like, wait a minute, they're gonna. I think maybe he's a little trigger shy, maybe a little bit about going too hard on her. But he just needs to let it loose and let it do what it do. One thing, because I know we've talked about it before, and I've mentioned it. Like I love how she talks about her different experiences. Like she babysat for migrants, you know, when she was a missionary in high school or whatever. She always talks about these little insignificant and volunteer work is awesome. Everybody, it's definitely awesome. But let's be real. You're running for president of the United States, and you're talking about your little babysitters club when you're 15 years old. Like that's ridiculous. Just like her work with Children's Defense Fund. It's always like, well, I work. Chick, calm down. You were out of law school, wet behind the ears. You went and worked, and according to the LinkedIn that says it's her official LinkedIn, she didn't even work there a full year. Now, I said before it was a year. According to LinkedIn, it's not even a full year. But she spent 16 years as a corporate lawyer representing Walmart. The Rose Law Firm also represented Monsanto. Spent 16 years as a corporate attorney in corporate America. So let's just be real here, right? Because we want to use this 1 year, and I've said it once before. You know, I can't use my experience working for the Department of Transportation in D.C. headquarters. Like if I try to get a job with my experience working there, even though I work for someone high up in the government, I'll get laughed at in this profession. But you know, she's Hillary Clinton, so she could do whatever. I think he's doing great. I mean, I think he's hitting her right where he needs to. I love the fact that he's getting his points in. I think he learned from last week, and he needs to. I mean, he's hitting right where he needs to. He was able to hit her on so many, and then eventually she has to back off. She's like, "Damn, that didn't work. Let me try something else." And the crowd is responding to him. I know I said who's in this crowd? Probably a bunch of college students too there, but the crowd. It seems like the crowd is with him. The crowd seems to be you know generous to both of them, but he's definitely getting some big cheers. So I'll turn it back over to you guys.
So, I really like how the debate's going so far. I wish he would hit her on some things. I feel like he's dancing around Honduras right now. Adriana Maestas on Twitter, she's pretty unbiased on both candidates, said she wants to see Sanders go after Clinton on that too. And I'd like, a lot like Noah said, he's really dancing around the issues, and I think he's really dancing around regime change, but I really think he needs to hone in on the Honduras right now and point out her issues with that. And I also think Hillary Clinton, though, is making a ton of missteps tonight. She's like reusing the Trey talking points when they fell flat last debate, and it's just not sticking because people are going to fact check, and Bernie's going to call her out on this stuff too. I don't know why she's using it. Seems like a dead end to me.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely. Her hubris. I mean, her hubris is part of what. It's one of the things, the Clinton hubris is kind of one of the things that lost them the 2008 election. And it's definitely going to, I mean, create an opening. I mean, we already have an opening. It's if she doesn't tighten up, I mean, it just gives us, you know, more leeway, more room to breathe some. But I definitely think that we, grassroots, if you're out there, you consider yourself a part of the grassroots movement, you consider yourself a Progressive Army, really have to step up the game. These next several races coming up, Illinois, Ohio, Missouri, North Carolina, and Florida, I mean, you got people in those states, you need to be talking to them. I mean, Michigan was a success. I saw some people on social media saying, yeah, social media, we did it. Probably, but Michigan was a success because there was like phenomenal phone banking canvassing. We have a follower for African Americans for Bernie and the Black Burner Coalition on Facebook, Lena Danger, who's an older black woman from Detroit who's pro Bernie, who was working her butt off because she was sending us updated photos every time they went to another drop. I mean, they were doing literature drops in Detroit all weekend. They were doing phone banking. I noticed on the Reddit, because now Solomon has me, going into Reddit now, that they have a tracker to track for people to check in when they're phone banking, so they can keep track of who's phone banking and where. So, if you're in or near one of these states and you can get there and get out and get on the ground, that's what we need to be. That's what we need to be doing, because this is our time. We saw that in Kansas with that record turnout. We saw it again in Michigan. I mean, the turnout in Michigan, turnout in Flint.
All right, here we go.
JP will be happy about this real quick. Turnout in Flint was the highest it's been in 20 years. That's insane.
That is what was, yeah. All right, here we go. All right, Noah, David,
Yes.
Q, it's in your hands.
Go, David.
Oh man, that last one really, like, what is she doing? At least makes sense. At least makes some sense. To claim that Bernie, to insinuate, she didn't actually say it, but to ask Bernie to criticize the Bush administration, insinuating that he never has and hasn't been one to do so. What planet is she living on? that just I don't know. I need to digest that a bit. Go for it, guys.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like she's really flailing. Like she's trying. Like there's other stuff you could criticize Bernie for, but she's trying to stick to these things she's lost. She's like lost the battle on. Like she's lost the battle on trade, but she's trying to recycle talking points. And now it's becoming very apparent that she hasn't been paying any attention to Bernie Sanders, because she, like, you know, David said, she just insinuated that he supported George W. Bush because he's not talking about him. It's like, yeah, he's been talking about George W. Bush. You know, she's making so many gaffes, and I feel like she's making so many gaffes tonight, and that she's really digging herself into a hole. And I don't know, I'm not quite sure why she's doing it. It seems very desperate. So what do you guys think?
I think that she is, I think when we go back to the Witch Hillary hashtag, right, I don't think she realizes, or I don't think they worked out which Hillary she was supposed to be tonight. I mean, she's not, you know, Hillary with the Southern drawl, you know, hugging black moms tonight. You know, she's not Hillary touring Flint with signs up telling people to smile because you're going to be on camera. I mean, really? Dude, you went to Flint and tell people they had to smile because you're walking around their neighborhood for points? Like, I don't know that she knew who she was going to be tonight, and I think that they think that they have the media on their side. Again, this is a co-sponsored debate between Univision and Washington Post that is being streamed also by CNN. So those are like three of her big, you know, gimmies, and she's getting the business from these moderators. I don't think they really thought that they were going to have to prepare or really do much. I think that they thought, you know, like she tried to say in the very beginning when they were like, what happened in Michigan? She's like, well, I won Mississippi. Okay, and I mean, you know, shout out to Mississippi, but I didn't realize that was like a bastion of progressiveness that we were. I mean, you know, there are spots, there are areas, and I'd like to think that if we had people around like former Mayor Chokwe Lumumba of Jackson, Mississippi, who was a brilliant progressive in his own right, I'd like to think Mississippi might have been a better fighting chance to some extent. But, you know, she's all over the place. Her points are not landing the way they need to, and no, it's not because I hate her. I have people over my Facebook like, well, you hate her so much. No, if your candidate is not strong enough to withstand criticism of her record, then maybe you need another candidate. I mean, seriously, if she's that vulnerable, then you guys are doing something wrong. Don't blame us because she has all these gaping holes. I really wish that we could get a Chicago, some way to tie into Chicago going on.
Oh, they came back really quick.
Okay.
Sorry. It's in your hands, Noah.
Did he not get to answer the question?
I didn't.
Yeah, he did not answer the question. She answered the question. He did not answer the question. She gave his answer to that question, and he didn't get to answer it. But that's okay, because he's still kicking her butt. Like we've all been saying, that was just like hecka red baiting with the Cuba question. But I think he's absolutely right. And I love the history lesson because, you know, American schools do a poor job of geography, history, like all that stuff. So I love the history lesson we're getting from him every time he talks about you know, I mean, tonight was Monroe Doctrine. I mean, if we're not familiar with, you know, Monroe Doctrine and Manifest Destiny, Google, people. I mean, this American attitude that we have, the euphemistic we, as in the country, the government itself, we can go and just intervene wherever and spread our influence, spread our you know, presence all across the world, you know, to try and catch up with the European powers and colonialism. Like, that is still very much the reason why we are the quote unquote police officer of the world today now too. I mean, we have intervened in so many different areas. I think I mentioned in the chat, like, there are some CIA documents that my daughter and I found when she was doing a project on the assassination of Patrice Lumumba, the first democratically elected leader of now what we call the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And there were some really interesting documents she found. We found some other reports from like Belgium and some other places, but it really looked at like they were called the church files basically, and they looked at the U.S. role in several attempted assassinations and actual assassinations that happened between the late 50s and late 60s. And the attempted assassination of Fidel Castro was one of them, and as well as the overthrow of Salvador Allende, as he mentioned. I mean, the U.S., we've destabilized so much of the world because it was in our best interest, supposedly, that a lot of these issues and a lot of these ongoing, you know, wars and conflicts that we have seen going back against the Congo, you know, there are things that we have seen happening that have directly because some bureaucrat in Washington decided we need to go because we don't like that person because Russia might get to them first. So let's go mix this up and put this, you know, brutal dictator. I mean, we could talk about how we don't like dictatorships when they don't suit us, but, you know, there are many human rights violations by people who have been supported, provided guns. Mobutu was provided guns by the United States. Other training and stuff by special forces. So I love when he gets into the regime change conversation. The fact that we're listening to a candidate for presidency, it's really actually very interesting too when we go back and tie into his support for his support amongst Arab Americans. I think it was the Arab American News said that he had the most progressive or balanced approach in terms of thinking about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We're looking at regime change. We're looking at, you know, that warmongering mentality going forward, right? Like, I just love his overall. He's not perfect. He's not perfect, but I like the fact that he's trying to bring us along with him in terms of what his ideology is, as well as he's kind of like, you know, this is what the history's been. Let's just put it out there and let's be real about this. This has not been good. You know, yes, we're a big, bad, successful country, but it's been at the cost of the rest of the world. And no, the world does not hate us because, yes, the world hates us because of our disaster foreign policy, not just because we're supposedly free. We're free the way we are because we've repressed the rest of the damn world. And I don't think that changing that policy is going to threaten us any. I think, if anything, it might make things better for the United States going forward. So.
All right, we're back to closing arguments.